when I put my phone to control the camera, I can sit there and go like this. Now this camera's pretty good. There's a new one that just went up that's a little better. But it's pretty good because it moves around and stuff. Good morning. Here we go.
Hey, are you Ian Nethercott, the host of the Auto Hub show?
War is tough, but peace is about thinking ahead of the challenges and getting it done.
There are lots of experts in automotive who talk about the problems. The Auto Hub show is all about solutions. Ready for the solutions? Let's get this masterclass started live right now.
If you look at the last 4 years, Ian, we've answered 41 million phone calls for dealers over the last 4 years with our AI platform. We've also handled over 150 million text messages. And so when you look at just those raw numbers, that's a 4-to-1, 3.5, 4-to-1 text to phone call. So I don't know. Here's what I can tell you, though. I believe that the customer wants to be met where they are presently. If that is text, voice, video call, if they want to be engaged and engaged instantly.
I've been fortunate enough to be using Numa since square one, but my opinion, I like to meet the customers where they are, because if I choose my preference in terms of how I want to communicate with people, I'm going to eliminate a large portion of my potential customers. The customer calls in from the outside. There doesn't have to be a person on the other side of the conversation, and it will be a transcribed, recorded transcription of the message, which is important, and it's real time, 365 days a year. So we don't lose anything. The customers that prefer the phone and the customers that prefer the text may be two different people, but the nice thing about like Numa as an example is you got both of those people in one spot.
Hey, I'm Vince Delmonico, General Sales Manager with Cruise Ford Lincoln. Larry Feldman came out and did one of our training courses. Absolutely incredible. I sat through the course myself. The engagement that our salespeople gained from it, the excitement that he brings, it was a new way of looking at things that we're already doing and how we can improve them. Love it. It's literally the best thing since sliced bread.
My name's Fareed Ahmed. I'm the founder and CEO of DSMA. So why should you use DSMA to sell your most valuable asset? The answer is very simple. It's our unparalleled approach to our clients' needs and satisfaction. Remember, DSMA, we're real people doing real deals.
Meta, Instagram, social, and your team is still waiting for ups like it's 1999. Let's be honest, your market isn't watching TV commercials, they're double tapping and engaging with your competitors on social media posts. People are shopping these days for cars and servicing their vehicles in between watching cat videos. That's where we can help. Retail Resilient is the go-to authority for social selling in the car industry. Whether you're a new car franchise dealer, an independent, a buy here, pay here, a broker, a dealership owner or manager, we have something for you. Remember, when your lot is quiet, it means your social media is not loud enough. Check us out at retailresilient.com so we can retarget you on our social media feeds.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And it has been a little bit of a recovery period. I made the good plan of coming back Saturday morning, which I don't know if it was good or better, but it was definitely helped me out a little bit. But I'm still paying for a week of talking to people and doing interviews. And I also wanted to thank the people at Numa for putting us up at their booth, and also DMSA, and of course Gail from Retail Resilient, and Larry. Gail, we had a really interesting conversation at the DMSA event, and DMSA, they gave us this document, Automotive Insider. So if you're looking to buy a dealership, want to know what the multiples are, or want to get a sense of it, let me know. I can definitely get you a hard copy. But the thing that was really interesting was the Goodwill multipliers on the back page. So it tells you about like how much you actually have to pay for these. You want to guess, Peter, what's the highest multiple for Goodwill?
Not even a wildest guess in the market today. It's crazy.
So Porsche, it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or the US, they do business in both. They also do business in Puerto Rico and the UK. 9 to 11 times Goodwill multiplier to buy one of those stores right now.
Wow.
Mercedes isn't as high. So I thought that was really interesting. The lowest, ironically, is what brand?
Hyundai?
Nope. Guess
Chrysler.
again. Nope. Guess again.
Volkswagen?
Nope. Well, the lowest you would expect to be Mitsubishi, but the lowest is actually Infinity because nobody wants it.
I didn't even think they were a brand anymore.
So Mitsubishi, it's 2.3 in the Canada and 2.5 in the US.
Wow.
Infinity is a little bit less. So if you're looking to get in and buy a dealership, the brand to look at is either Mitsubishi, Stellantis is close, Mitsubishi, Stellantis, or Infinity. Ironically, if you're buying a Stellantis store in the US, the multiplier is higher, even though half the stores, from word to the wise from people I know, are unprofitable in the US right now. So yeah, the Mazda is actually a pretty good value too. Nissan's a close third. So Doug, I saw you there at the bar Tiki Lounge at NADA. I noticed that Amazon was going big with the bar theme. Maybe you can share some details on what your thoughts were for NADA as Amazon wades into their second year of appearances, sans snow, obviously this year. What do you think?
No, it was really well received. There was an awful lot of traffic at the booth, if you could call it a booth. It was more like an oasis, really.
Yeah, bar, nightclub.
Yeah, I mean, it was a coffee bar until 4, and then a bar from 4 to 5. But a lot of interest, a lot of people very intrigued by what the opportunity is with Amazon Autos, and still a lot of questions, still a lot of misperceptions as far as what the program's all about. But once they learned it, they were like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I want to do this."
And what about Zooks? What did you think about Zooks?
Didn't even take a look at it. I heard others, but I was just like, nope, I lived in my world and stayed in my lane.
The clown cars driving around were Zooks, so they kind of look like a toaster on wheels with weird lights, which was kind of humorous. And I had some pretty funny dinner experiences with one restaurant we went to, is Carver's in the Hilton properties. So literally we walked in and there was this long table of empty seats. It was like 40 people. It looked like something out of a White House or something. And then about half an hour later, 40 young women that were 20 to 25 rolled in and sat at this table, which was kind of interesting. I hear there's something called the day party spot in Vegas where I guess they're like bottle girls or something. But that was kind of interesting. But my most memorable experience from a dinner perspective was a place called Capo's, where they actually abuse you when you walk in. It's like a speakeasy, and they abuse you when you arrive, which is kind of funny. But if you're looking for cheap food off strip, dinner for 2 with drinks, $105. And that was like clearly the cheapest I've ever bought food for in Vegas ever that I can remember. But what was your most memorable experience as you walked around? Did you get some chance to walk around and talk to different people?
Not too much. I really tended to live at the booth. I think what was interesting was just the general mass of people. I mean, it was really nice to go to an event where there was just a ton of people there. So that made it a lot more enjoyable. And obviously those parties at night they're hit or miss on those. So
well, what's your estimate on how many people showed up? What do you think?
Oh, I'm not very good at that, but I don't know, thousands upon thousands. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think last year they lost about half the attendance that they normally get.
They what?
Last year in New Orleans, it was about half the people didn't make an appearance at all. Like half just gave up. Yeah.
I think it was more than that. I think it was a lot more than that, because I think if you take into account the vendors, I mean, I think half of the vendors didn't even make it because the weather was so bad. So
yeah, and I mean, I guess I can talk a little bit about sort of the learnings from looking at vendors that were busy and ones that weren't. So we were at the Numa booth that obviously did a lot of prep for the show, and they had about 600 to 700 appointments for the show. There was a booth right next door, not to beat them up, but they literally had no people. And it was basically a similar size booth. So part of the learning for me, and this is something I learned years ago from Techion and others, is, really now that NDA is over and you're in recovery mode, you really need to start planning for next year. and really put the time in and say, hey, if I want to be busy next year and actually sell lots of products and services, I really need to be out there doing that. I also thought it was interesting, strictly from a marketing in the aisle point of view or outside of the booth. There was the boys from the Elliott military wannabe army that were like, I don't know what they were doing, but that was kind of interesting. I also had to commend the guys from Forgive, Focus, Fly for these things. It was kind of a cool takeaway.
Okay.
And then the coolest thing I got from a tchotchke point of view was this. It's a 250 anniversary Carfox, but that was kind of cool. So, I mean, most of the stuff that I get at the show, I throw away, but that was kind of interesting. Did you hear anything more about the details on Van merging with VinQ?
I heard nothing.
Oh, okay. So they're merging together. David Long has stepped away from his dealer group, so he's doing that. So I didn't have a chance to talk to Danny very much, but we did do a live show for Lethal Sales, which is up right now if you want to check it out. That was pretty interesting at Styx's booth, Radiant Ride, at the show. But it was actually quite near your booth, I think. But the other thing that was kind of interesting, and strictly from a danger Will Robinson point of view, and I do a lot of interviews at the show with a lot of gear, it was shocking to me how distracted people were walking down aisles, like to the point where I thought they were going to hit things because like they weren't paying attention to anything. They were just walking around. It was really interesting. But I would think you probably got 40 to 60,000 people at the show. That would be my estimate. The most entertaining, I guess, pitch or lack thereof pitch that I saw, which I'll be uploading soon, was the U.S. Cancer Foundation is raising money from car dealers. And that was a really interesting story. I videotaped the gentleman talking about it on the main stage. And he actually keeps a key on his keychain from his grandfather who died from cancer as a reminder. I thought that was really interesting. And then, of course, sprinkles of AI. Maybe Peter can talk a little bit about the enhanced with AI discussions.
Oh, God. AI was everywhere. It's like, it seemed like everybody had some sort of AI offering. It was like AI, overload. And the funny part was I went to a lot of different booths, looked at a lot of different things. And a lot of them talked to AI, but it wasn't really AI. It's the same thing we've been doing for years and years and years about just automating things.
Right.
And I will say several of the booths that did really well, really focused. And when I heard them all talking about the ones where I saw a lot of people at was talking about the importance of data. And I think that's the key with AI. And I think everybody needs to really focus on that. It's the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good, clean data, and we all know that every dealership has horrible data. Their DMS is a mess. I mean, Cactus Guy, our focus is email marketing. And I got to tell you, when a dealer sends me their emails to do some email marketing, the first thing we do is we clean it. We lose 40 to 60% of the records because the emails are bad records. And that's a scary number. And if you're not taking the time to clean your data, you're just going to be in trouble because you're literally loading that in, and AI doesn't work properly unless you give it good data. So I think that was an important thing I noticed. And but a lot of these companies, I don't think they even understand some of their offerings. I talked to a couple of people, and I would ask them a couple of questions, and it was like, maybe it was just because I had a bad salesperson who wasn't really trained, but they're not really understanding the importance and how their product actually works. The one thing I will say that I did like is the automation, the AI that is working for the fixed ops departments, where they're helping take the inbound calls for the service department to free up the service advisors. I think that's genius. And the ones that are doing a good job, those should be looked at carefully by the dealers, because if you can free up the service advisor's time, it's going to make you more money. And he should not be the one answering the calls. Hey, is my car ready? Can I schedule an appointment? They need to be making the important calls. Hey, Mr. Jones, you just realized that your car needs a new front end, not, dealing with, when is my car ready for being picked up? And that's why I think AI plays a big role today.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I think there was a lot of companies that a couple of years ago were sort of talking about big data analytics. They were sort of talking about data cleaning, sort of talking about a little bit of automation. But the theme this year, which didn't surprise me, was AI at scale. But more importantly, I think some of these companies that maybe used to be a little bit relevant are getting lost in the shuffle just because they don't have that or they're not focused on that. I mean, I was looking at Black Book Canada, not to beat them up, but the booth they had was the same as last year's booth. I don't think they really had much to talk about. And I think really just like AI endorsement or like AI adoption, companies that aren't standing apart, they're not standing apart because they really have nothing for the dealers to look at. I saw a post this morning that's new. I saw a post this morning about how dealers should consider looking at everything before they buy anything now because they're so overwhelmed. And I know historically they've just bought a bunch of stuff and then canceled it 30, 60 days later. Did you see anything new on the website side of the business at all? I mean, Doug, you'd probably be better versed on this than us. Did you see anything innovative?
I didn't really, again, I didn't attend a lot of booths, so I didn't really check out a lot. We had another team doing that. But to get back to this AI thing, it got to the point now where when people would show up at our booth and we would say the words AI just to see what they're up to, their eyes would roll. I think it's gotten to the point where it's so genericized. AI is like the term Kleenex. I mean, it used to be attached to a brand. Now it's just a generic term. And everybody's just using it however they feel like doing it. I think what will be interesting is some of these AIs probably should rebrand themselves, that they're actually AI tools, but that they're fulfilling a certain role. Like Peter, as you said, if the AI in service was more not dubbed AI, but it was dubbed a service enhancement tool or something like that, then you kind of you run away from, oh great, another AI tool. Because I think a lot of people are going to roll their eyes, and a lot of people are just going to, and to your point, Ian, there's a lot of AI that isn't AI, that doesn't really do anything. They're just calling it AI. And that'll water down people that actually have an efficient and effective tool utilizing that technology. So it'll be interesting to watch as if certain silos develop under the auspices of AI.
Yeah, I mean, I did an interview with Dominion, Priority Dominion, which was interesting because they're actually saving the dealer money on credit card transactions, but there's more to it now that it's two companies. And to your point, I think there was so much focus on AI that maybe a lot of stuff got lost in the shovel. What do you think, Peter?
Well, going back to what Doug was talking about with the website, the one thing I did come across that I thought was quite interesting was, and we've had him as a guest before, Savvy Dealer. And AI, what people aren't really talking about is AI search. When the consumer goes online and they're using ChatGPT or Grok or any of those search tools, and they go in there and say, Ford F-150 is located in Jacksonville, Florida, under $45,000. And they do a search using AI, using a chat feature like that. If your website is not chat friendly, those searches are going to be blocked. Those bots will go out there and they're not going to come back with any results. So the guys at Savvy Dealer, they created a little tool where you can literally go and test your website. And since they put that website tool up before NADA, the week before NADA, they told me they've had over 1,000 dealers test their website. Now I don't know how many passed or failed. I didn't get that deep in the conversation with them. But it's interesting that that's a topic that not a lot of people are talking about, but it's something they need to talk about because they're losing business. There's somebody searching and your website is not chat friendly. And you think about it, everybody's using the different tools. They got all different plugins on their website. So if that plugin isn't set up properly, or whatever the case may be, I'm not sure how all that technology works, but you're losing business because people aren't searching for cars the way they used to. They're using, AI, they're using chat, things like that. So I think that's an important piece that the dealer needs to be focusing on. At least that's one thing I pulled out of the session with the website side.
And what did you think about the V20 booth? That's a new booth where vendors are sort of getting together in a group. I mean, did you have any opinion on that kind of twist versus a traditional booth?
I went by that booth a number of times, and I know a lot of those guys there. And quite honestly, I just thought that was just a mess. I was under the impression they were going to be doing some training there. I didn't see much training going on there. And when you've got 20 different companies in one booth, and they're all just kind of like muddled in there, it's how do you, unless you've got specific meetings set up and you got a place to have the meetings, I thought that idea of having a big joint booth, and quite honestly, I was surprised NADA allowed that. I know years ago they changed the rules, and if you were going to have another vendor in your booth with you, you had to pay an extra fee because they stopped people from doing that, where you'd have one companies buying a booth, and you know how the NADA works. The longer you've been doing it, the better booth placement you get. So that's trying to circumvent that whole situation. And NADA try to crack that down, but to have 20 different vendors sharing one booth, every time I walk by the booth, it seemed kind of like a ghost town to me, and I didn't see much going on. And quite frankly, I was, you know, if I was involved in that, I would have been a little bit disappointed with the results.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your opinion, Doug, on the North Hall versus the West Hall? I'm not sure what hall you guys were in last year. Do you know?
No, Amazon's still trying to work their way up the hierarchy chain. So we were West Hall. You know, it would appear that North Hall, I mean, I don't know, but just judging by it, most people got dropped off there. That's where they're going to probably end up meandering to. So West Hall, you really had to be probably focused on going to a certain place,
right?
Seeing a certain vendor. So I don't know that was best, but you know, it worked for us. I mean, let's face it, we had a very eye-catching booth.
Oh yeah,
got an awful lot of attention.
I was waiting for the tiki, those tiki flame things. Like I was waiting for those to show up.
Yeah. No, it was a great booth, man. It was really, it worked out well, and it was fun.
Yeah. Larry, you were running around, running and gunning all over the place. What was your opinion of the show? What did you think?
I liked it. I got a chance to make some really strong connections. Just enjoyed it. You know my philosophy. And if I can't find a dealer, I'll make a contact with another vendor and see what I can do for them, and they can do for me, and just networking our brains out.
And what was your opinion on the West Hall versus the North Hall this time? And of course, the theme of the show seemed to be AI.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Hey, while we're waiting for him, you were talking about cool swag. This is probably by far the coolest swag I got there.
Wow.
Those of you are old enough to remember what this is, okay? But what's cool about this is you open it up, you slide this over, and they've got a little thumb drive that pops out. It's a little hard to get out, but it is a little hard to get out. But it's got this little drive that comes out. So it's a pretty cool piece of swag that, because I'm walking by and I'm like, caught my eye, like, wow, who even has a computer that this would work for?
Nobody.
You know? And I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Let's see, the West Hall and the North Hall.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing, of course, about the North Hall is we got to do a very crazy, very well-populated lethal sales.
Yeah, the recording's up now, just so you know.
I was a little prone to like the West Hall because I got to hang with you and watch you do you and Peter Mark do a lot of really great interviews.
Yeah.
So,
and then
I just was concerned that the halls weren't far enough apart. I know some people didn't come home with leg cramps or blisters, so maybe they can range in different states next time, the two halls.
I'm thinking they should have signs. You're almost there. or even just use that hallway as booth space. Like you're walking through it anyway. I mean, they could have done something with it. I mean, they had a DJ there, and I think Rocket did something, or Rocked did something there where they were handing out beverages, but you got to figure there's an opportunity there to have like a small booth in that walking space that's interesting. I mean, they had those big things with Time Magazine and stuff, but there wasn't really anybody really maximizing that. And I think that was really interesting, as was, I think, the main stage. But I think also in the North Hall specifically, they could have done the same thing as in the West Hall. They could have had a podcast stage or an interview stage where they could have had some content there, which I think they missed on that. But the other thing that I think is unfortunate sometimes for the North Hall when we do it in Vegas is some of the companies, they just get so lost in the North Hall because all the booths kind of look the same. And I think Amazon did a great job there differentiating themselves with a different looking booth, as does Digital Airstrike every year. But it's not necessarily about the size of the booth. It's about getting creative on what you're doing. And I think a lot of vendors, it's just a 3x5 or 4x8 booth. And it's basically just, a bunch of chairs and a table. And there's really nothing to draw that person in if they didn't have an appointment. Like there's no reason for them to stop, which I think is a misstep. I mean, I think there's NADA probably could do a better job helping out the vendors with, here's some good best practices from booths in the past, right? You know, that's I think that would be interesting. Go ahead.
I think NADA is really not anyone's friend when it comes to those booths, because some of those poor guys that were on the back section, I walk back there, and quite honestly, I always walk back there because those are the new guys and they find stuff. And I did come across one booth which caught my eye, and I did some research on them about Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
And Bitcoin. And I think that's a little bit ahead of I don't think dealers are ready to start taking, $70,000 Bitcoin payments for a vehicle, when they don't have a way to use that yet. But I think in the future that's going to change, because Bitcoin, I think, is here to stay. But I would have never found that booth, and one of the interviews that I did back there was that company that did the software for the fixed ops mobile service scheduling.
Yeah.
Great little company. They had a tiny little 10 by 10 booth, and they're literally back against the wall. And unless you were looking to go find them, you wouldn't have
right there.
And I don't think that's fair to those guys, because they are good products, and I think it makes it hard for them to get any ROI. So I think NADA should really reconsider how they structure that a little bit to make it not like you're literally in Timbuktu when you're a new vendor.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Peter, everybody, I got to jump interviewing people in Sarasota. I'll catch you guys later. Doug, good to see you. Peter, always good to see you. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks,
How are you going?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. Like, if they had maybe, let's just say that average booth size is 10 to 20, or a 10 by 20 booth, for example. Basically, I think what they could do is they could have a section in both halls where it's like the little bit bigger companies that are going to, grow over time, where they're a little bit more of a focus or a spotlight on them. I mean, I know Cox owns part of that convention center, but I think in fairness to everybody else, it would be nice to have sort of a spotlight in both halls where it's like, here are the new and up and coming companies that maybe people could focus on. I mean, much like they did with that V20, but more like, okay, here's some up and comers that you might want to check out, and more spotlight on them versus having to find them in the back corner. I remember going to the show, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, and I was working for a company called NavVat, and they were like in the new vendor section, which like you basically couldn't find unless you were crawling around the outside of the booth. Like, there's no way you were going to find it. And I think placement is definitely important, but more importantly, I think even some big companies, you got to question where their placement is. Like, some of the companies that generally have good placement, I find, sometimes just get kind of left in the lurch. And I think that might be because they probably make the decision late. There's probably limited space left. But, the other question is, what percentage of customers coming to a booth do you think actually end up, buying something? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, that'll be the interesting thing on this follow-up, is how many people, because at least at our booth, there were three entries, 3 people getting, 3 scanners. How many people were there that are actually didn't just want to, you saw a lot of people early in the morning that just wanted coffee. That's all they wanted. And you had to try to, bend them. The other thing is, a lot of times, a lot of the traffic at booths are just other vendors that are in there. So it's like, okay, that's not necessarily the best. It'll be interesting to see. I think that we'll have probably a pretty high follow-through rate on the visitors on our booth, just because virtually everybody who came, it's like, oh no, I want to do this. But a traditional vendor, like let's say you're a CRM vendor, a smaller company trying to get the CRM business, boy, that's got to be tough.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of leads. You're going to end up chasing a lot of people, probably for not a lot of return.
Ian, one of the things we're talking about the show, and we got a lot of dealers on the, and a lot of automotive people in the audience today. One of the things that I wanted to throw out there is talk to several people about what they thought about the training sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spoken to 16 NADAs in my career, over the last 30 some odd years. And it's changed a lot. Back when I first started, number one, as a speaker, you were paid. They covered your per diem, and you had 3 sessions. You would do 3 sessions every show. The first session, they always had an NADA moderator there watching your session to make sure you didn't do anything wrong or you weren't endorsing anybody. And if you did, God forbid, they would pull you back and they're like, hey, You do it again, you're not doing your last show. And they were very strict about that. But the point of what they did back in those days, they were providing the dealers with really good information. They were bringing in industry experts to talk about topics. And they did a very good job of making sure that there was not a sales pitch. As a matter of fact, one particular year I spoke, and it was literally they needed somebody at the last minute because when they had the speaker come to Virginia to do their presentation to their group before they came in, because it was the first time he was ever going to speak, it was such a sales pitch, they basically said, no, you're not going to speak. And they had me come in and fill in for him because I knew that topic. Now, what I'm finding is you get one speaking session, okay, but a large majority, and I don't even want to throw the number out because people will be really upset, but they can figure out the number themselves. They go back and look at the number of speakers. A large majority of the speakers were employees of NADA. I have a problem with that. Not because, I've been a speaker and I want to be a speaker. I have a problem with that because the benefit for the dealers in the past was when they showed up in NADA, they were going and they're going to hear from industry experts, people that are in the field doing something, whether it's selling to the dealers or actually doing something. And now they're putting their own people in there. And I'm not sure what that motivation is, but it happened. It was over 40% last year. Okay, there's speakers. This year, I'm not going to say what the number is. Everyone can look for themselves. But I think the dealers that were at the show, if you weren't satisfied with the quality of the speaker, I think you need to speak up and go back to NADA, because I think we need, as a dealer body, need to go back and talk about that. And the other thing, which I want to throw out as my last pet peeve, is this. I'm an ex-dealer, okay? When I was a dealer, it used to bother me when people come in and try to tell me how to run my business or do a better job that have never set foot and worked in a dealership. You don't have to be an owner to come sell, but you should at least know the industry. And they even had some speakers in the past that really never worked in an actual dealership. So who are these people deciding who are going to be the speakers? Because industry experts like yourself, Doug, and numbers of other industry experts that know your space, those people should be the people up on stage teaching the dealers. And I really just going to say this last thing is, if you were a dealer and you weren't happy at the show and the speech that you heard or the speakers that you went to, the workshops you went to, you need to let NADA know about it. You need to speak up about it, because I think they need to restructure how they're doing that, because they're not really treating the vendors properly, the way they're positioning some of them, but they're also not treating the dealers properly because they're not providing this type of education in the past.
And the other question, I guess, you got to ask is, obviously some OEMs are present. Ford was there, Mitsubishi. I think there were some others. Do you think that they're adding value being there? I mean, what's your opinion there?
That's a good question. So on the last day, I hit the North Hall early to get a bunch of swag for my grandkids. I was told better come home with some stuff, so I did. And I went by the Hyundai booth, and I was wondering, why does Hyundai, or why do OEMs need these massive footprints? What are they doing there that requires such a massive thing? I mean, they already have their dealers. So I'm curious what that is all about, and the wisdom behind that. It just seems like money not well spent. That could be utilized. I don't know. It could make the show a little bit more intimate if you didn't have these big OEMs taking up so much space. I mean, I'm obviously clueless as to the rationale for them having these huge spreads like in the North Hall.
Oh yeah, I mean, like Ford last year and this year had a massive booth, but it was the only people could go. So let's just say you're a dealer and you might want to consider looking at what Ford's doing and maybe buy a dealership even. If you're on a Ford dealer, they weren't even letting you into the booth. But to your point, it was probably a 80 by 80 booth. I mean, Mitsubishi didn't have much of a presence, but they had some. They're there because they're always looking for dealers. But if I'm a Ford dealer or a Mitsubishi dealer, I'd probably want to be able to have a meeting with the brass. I don't think I need to see a Mitsubishi because I already sell them. I'd want to be able to, have a meeting with the brass to see what's going on, right? Versus see, a bunch of product that's on the ground. Like, okay, great, I sell Mitsubishis. I already know what that is. It's almost like a car show, like a little sort of quasi car show kind of setup, which I thought was kind of interesting. And that's also true if you go to SEMA. The OEMs are there, but it's really kind of customer facing / dealer facing simultaneously. So I don't know on that one.
So I wonder if has NADA just gotten repetitive and boring?
Well, how long you been going to NADA?
A long time.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to Mark Rikers at the show. He's been going for 40 years.
Mhm.
And I kind of compare it to the mall environment you see today. Like no matter which mall you go to, they have the same stores. I think what they really need to do is say, okay, well, we're going to break it up and make it more interesting. So we're going to have smaller footprint booths. We're going to have more of them. We're going to make it, informative for the dealer and maybe ask the dealer what they want to see versus just sell a bunch of companies and hope that works out. I also noticed that a lot of companies that traditionally had booths opted not to this year because they felt it was better to have an offsite party or some other thing. So I think that's part of it too, Doug, when you look at the sheer cost of having a booth at the show. I mean, I know internet is like, all the money in the universe, but even just having a booth, is an expensive thing. I mean, you look at Numa, they had, I think, 60 people at the show. They had 40 salespeople, I think. And their booth was right next to CDK, which was gargantuan. But you got to question sort of, do they need that much footprint, right, to do what they got to do, right? But, I mean, you had a small booth last year with Amazon. It was about the same size this year. Was that same footprint?
No, this was bigger.
Okay.
This was a bigger footprint.
Yeah.
But I mean, from our standpoint, we needed all the space we could get for all the people that we had. But I sometimes wonder if NADA would be better if they literally had sections within the floor space that dedicated to certain aspects of the industry. So you could just say, all right, all the DMS and CRM providers are here, and all the whatevers are here, and all this is here. So they're all just there, and so be a little bit user friendly for a dealer. That's, hey, I'm looking for a new lift company. Okay, here's 10 of them at NADA. Go check them all out.
Well, that's basically what they do at SEMA. That's what they do at SEMA. Like if you go to SEMA, they'll have tinting companies and then tire wheel companies and then equipment companies and then storage companies, and they'll all be in a section. And I agree with you. Like putting a door, like a power door company next to a software company doesn't really make sense because it's not at all the same. Like that person who's a service director who's going to look at a power door may not be looking at anything else, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's not just North Hall versus West Hall. It's, the dealers coming with a list of what they want to get done and what they want to look at. And I think some dealers don't do that. But, if you're planning a booth for next year, 2027, I think what you want to be looking at is A, what booths are available? B, do you want to be in one hall or both halls? And C, do you really need a big booth? I think if you had two small booths, one in each hall, that was say a 10 by 10, if you planned and executed, you'd probably do much better than the companies with a big booth, because a big booth alone isn't enough. But what do you think, Peter? You market for people at NADA?
Yeah, one thing that I thought was interesting, there was one booth there that I saw, and they actually had a booth in the main hall in North and the smaller booth in West.
Yeah.
They literally had one on both sides. And it's funny because I talked to one guy one day, the next day I saw him in the other booth. They were switching him around. And that was an interesting approach on what to do. But again, it goes back to the end of the day is there was 5,442 dealers, general managers registered for the show. That was the number. That's the real number. And of that, how many people did you scan? That's what you got to look at. Okay. How many people came through? We do a lot of marketing for the vendors, and our vendors did pretty well. So we were able to match up as we do the email matching. We matched up with about over 4,000 of them. So every day we were hitting them with a message, and it works. But you have to be doing that marketing before, during, and after the show. I was surprised at how many vendors out there, they weren't doing any pre-marketing on LinkedIn. The dealers are. You've got to start scheduling appointments ahead of time. I tell my clients, you need to be 90 days out, starting to talk about what you're going to be doing at NAD, start creating some buzz, getting some familiarity out there, doing some articles, things like that, to get people thinking about it. Because if you think it's not, remember the old Field of Dreams movie?
Yeah.
Builders will come. You put a big booth out there, and it doesn't mean people are going to show up. I was walking by some booths, and I was surprised that they actually went back to the old booth bays. They had the girls out there outside the booth trying to drag people in. I mean, we're getting back, it's just getting a little bit silly. you really got to be marketing smarter, not harder, to get these people showing up. And follow-up is key. And the next couple of weeks, the dealers are going to be inundated with just calls and emails and text messages. And, you know, if you haven't built a little bit of a relationship before and really cemented that during the show, you're just going to be another person they're blocking or ignoring when their phone rings.
Well, you also got to remember that there's so much marketing during that, let's just say 30-day period, and it intensifies over, say, that 14-day period, and even more so over the 3 to 5 days of the show. If you haven't broken through way before that and orchestrated that, then you got a challenge. The other thing that was really interesting, since I was also booking meetings to a limited degree for Numa as well, was even if someone's at the show, they're looking at 10 shiny bongles, and Vegas doesn't help. So you've really got to focus on, okay, I got my appointments, they're booked down. I've got to make sure I confirm it in multiple ways. And I really have to almost chase those folks, because otherwise they're going to get distracted by a new shiny bongle at the show and you may not see them. I mean, people I've known for years, some of them I saw briefly at the show, but really you got to prioritize what you have to get done and how you can get that game plan accomplished. If you don't know how many people attended, how many scanned, how many showed up, and how many bought, then how can you calculate an ROI? I agree with you 100%. But more importantly, what's your target market? I think a lot of dealers, a lot of vendors just want to talk to dealers, but who at the dealer group? Is it the fixed ops director? Is it the owner of the group? Is it senior management? Is it IT? I mean, I interviewed, I did testimonials with about 6 people at the Numa booth, and they were the whole range, but a lot of these groups show up with 4 or 5 decision makers, right? Some of them only show up with 1 or 2, right? So the question is, even if someone's a representative, say, of Lithia, is that the right person, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of it's also, they may be aware of you through LinkedIn, but they haven't met you yet. So you've also got to bear in mind that it's still kind of a meet and greet scenario, right? So I think that's the other thing, is it's not like Glenn Garrigan Ross with the steak knife comparison. You're not closing every deal when they walk in. It's really all about follow up and follow through, right?
Yeah. Well, I think, Ian, at this point, I think we should also, we talked a little bit about the vendors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think we need to maybe, because a lot of our audience are dealers and general managers, and a lot of people didn't make it to the show. I think what we should maybe pop over to Doug and ask Doug, what was the one product, aside your product, because we already know how great your product is, but what was the one product that you saw that you think dealers should take a look at and check out? You know, what was one of the hot things you saw at NADA that, you know, if you were still in the business selling cars and running dealerships, that you would recommend they took a look at?
Candidly, I didn't look at much, so I couldn't answer it. I mean, literally, I spent 99% of my time at my booth with my people, so I really didn't look at much, to be perfectly frank.
Okay, well, that's a fair answer. How about you, Ian? What was something that you saw that you really think the audience should take time to check out?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, they should be doing an evaluation or audit of the tools they have before they show up to see, okay, is there a better tool out there that replaces a couple of tools or does it better than what I have? And there was a number of those tools at the show, whether it be DMS or website or Dominion with the payment processing. But also, I think that the real takeaway from the show for me, based on just the nature of the auto business right now, is if you're not focused on upping your game in the service side of the house, be that with selling more service, creating a better experience, marketing better to customers, understanding wheel and tires and how to promote that, understanding how to do mobile service. There was a couple companies, I think Ford even had, or Stellantis had a mobile direct or a service direct exhibit there where they were talking about their service vehicles where you could do service. I think a lot of it is historically has been a focus on car sales, and that's part of it, but you got to also live in the environment you're in. So you need to look at, okay, if I'm with Cox or if I'm with Reynolds and I'm looking at ways to have a more innovative CRM and DMS, I got to compare apples to apples. I've got to go, okay, I'm going to go look at Reynolds. I'm going to go look at PBS. I'm going to go look at CDK. I'm going to go look at Techion and want to see, does my product that I have stack up? But also, what products have I bought maybe over the last 18 to 24 months that maybe are now obsolete, or there's a better solution? And I think that's another thing that dealers don't do enough of. They don't really do an evaluation before they go to be prepped for a presentation. They're sort of looking at everything as opposed to looking at what the things that they should be looking at. The reason I bring up priority DMS is basically it's found money, Like you're basically putting money back into your bottom line by reducing that. And that, to me, right now, you want to be looking at ways to be lean and mean as things pivot. And then, of course, if you're looking at customer experience, which I think everybody's looking at today, A to Z Sync and other products out there, whether it be co-video or vid calls or other things, you've got to stand out from that other dealer, because if you don't, they're going to steal your customer. Like, how are you different in a market space of the same? How can you be that chocolate or that rocky road in a sea of vanilla? And it's not just vanilla dealerships. It's vanilla dealer groups. It's vanilla product. There's just not a lot of difference. So you've got to say, okay, how can I stand out and really hold my team's feet to the fire to make sure I don't lose any customers and I maximize every turn? When you look at even the hotels in Vegas, and I think this was interesting from a hotel perspective, since I haven't been to Vegas in a couple of years, I think they're leaning really hard on fees. And I think that's a mistake. You should be leaning really hard on experience. I mean, I went to a couple steakhouses and it was a wide array of experiences, price points similar. But why would someone go back to a place that, say, is charging them $300 a plate unless it was that much better than the other places? The same is true with your car dealership. If you know the customer is going to have a car for 10 to 12 years, you better get good at presenting leasing. You better get good at selling tires. You better get good at creating a great service experience, making sure you're not missing any opportunities for inbound calls or inquiries on the internet, making sure your website stuff's up to snuff. So really compare them. Say, listen, I've got this website. I'm looking at these 5. Why should I choose you? And what does that mean? And really be educated in it before you make the decision. And then cutting costs, 100%.
I think next year's show should be interesting. I don't even know where it is.
Orlando.
Orlando.
Yep.
Okay. So I think it'll be interesting because, I read something that said that 2025 profits for dealers are still much higher than pre-COVID level. But if this year bears out as I think it might, where it's going to be tighter and it's going to be tougher, next year could be really interesting when people hit NADA and, to your point, Ian, and look to consolidate tech. I think that there's a lot of people I talk to that are just like, there was 2 schools. One was, fine, whatever, I'm in. And the other one was, gosh, I really don't want more tech in my store. I really don't, they're almost like, I have tech fatigue as it is. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the course of this year and what that bears out next year.
Yeah, well, just think about AI just for your business life. So you've got Google AI, you've got Microsoft AI, you got LinkedIn AI, you've got Adobe AI, you got Apple's AI. So when you're looking at it from a dealer point of view, now I've got PBS, I've got Reynolds AI, I've got CDK, I've got Techion AI, I've got AI from my call center operation, I've got AI from my service writer operation, I've got AI from tablets. Like, there's got to be some overlap, but more importantly, am I creating a bigger problem by having too much automation, or maybe I don't need it, or maybe it's better not to have it? Like, I always use the Highline example. If I'm a Porsche store and I'm not giving that person concierge level experience all the time, why would that person choose a Porsche versus a Genesis or versus an Audi or versus a Lexus? So it's not just software solutions. Does that make sense? And are you creating that experience? So when you look at the A to Z model, it's a one person selling model. But the question is, what components are in that model that's unique to your store? Like, how are you training the people on it? Are they doing it to the right level? What KPIs are you measuring? And I think a lot of it is just shiny bongle, squirrel, which is fine. Yeah. But I think as we move forward, to your point, if I can make my people more efficient, if I can create a better experience, and if I can streamline my tech stack and make it easier for people to adapt, I think that's going to be 2027, in my opinion. That's what I think. Because cars are getting more complicated, but more importantly, the amount of tools and logins, it's got to be overwhelming a lot of people in the industry, right? I would guess. Like, I was literally doing an interview with a couple friends of mine, Russell Hill and Stan Shear. I'm trying to think, Tony T in North Hall. And there was a gentleman who's on the NADA board. He's a dealer out of Minnesota, I think. And he basically sat there for the whole interview. It was a group interview. And then he rolled up. He says, well, what do you think about security in AI? What do you think about hacking that consumer data? What do you think? Like, how can I protect myself? I own a bunch of rooftops from that data that AI is using being hacked, and me having a bigger problem, which is now I got a bunch of customer information out there, you know, credit card information, you know, information recorded in the business office, information on the showroom floor. And I thought that was really interesting because there's a lot of talk about AI, but there wasn't a lot of dealers that I talked to who are wrapping their head around the potential threats. Like, they have the AI, it's all bolted on, but what's the downside? What's the things they got to be concerned with, right?
That's very interesting. I had a conversation the day before NADA with the head of compliance for a sizable dealer group, and she said yes. To your point, she goes, everybody's jacked up with AI. No one's thinking about the compliance side of AI. And she goes, and it is scary for us.
Yeah, I mean, if you had 50,000 records, which is probably your average one rooftop dealer today, some of those records, to Peter's point, 30% of them are probably not compliant with Privacy Act stuff, Castle in Canada and the Privacy Act in the US. You've got dealers texting and emailing these folks and phoning them, maybe even. They're not sure who is on the do not call list. You've got AI digging into that, and without any oversight or with limited oversight, it's doing that. Whether it's doing that correctly, who knows? And have they set it up properly so that way it's not only doing it the right way, but more importantly, it's not causing a new problem, which is, oh shit, I'm calling the wrong people. I'm sorry, I didn't understand what I was doing. So, you know, I know years ago there was a text settlement that was a couple $1 million. So I'm not saying don't use AI. I'm just saying, you know, be aware that you got to partner with a company that actually knows how to set it up and can explain it to you. And that's, I think, going to be the biggest challenge. I mean, you're looking to replace people potentially, but what are you replacing them with? Are you replacing, you know, Johnny with a dumb version who does worse than Johnny did, right?
Right.
Like, I was at an airport, and they now have all these automated kiosks like at your grocery store. And they literally have one person there who's doing everything now, from stocking to answering questions. And then when things break, that one person has to handle 5 terminals. Because if they break, then there's only one person there, and they're also securing everything and stocking shelves. What's the chance they can do all that at scale when there's 50 people in the store? I don't know. So that's the other thing I think that people aren't really talking about, right?
Yep. Agreed.
So I thought it was a great show. I think dealers need to look at putting a plan together for next year and really thinking it through, so that way they're going, but more importantly, they're learning stuff and they're making the right calls. Vendors, I think, really need to do the math and go, hey, to Peter's point, showing up with a big, you know, colossal pyramid booth and hoping that magically makes sense with lights and disco balls is not really the solution. But more importantly, how are you marketing to dealers, not only before the show and at the show, but how are you following up afterwards? Because that dealer who went to 20 booths in NADA over 4 days and was also gambling in the evening, are they actually going to remember that conversation they had with you? Are they going to have any recollection of what was actually going on, right? Or are they just going to be like, okay, now back to work, right?
Yeah, that's always the fear, is that, you know, you get this big influx and then they don't even remember who you were.
But what's your experience been? I mean, you've been doing this a couple of years. Like, after you follow up, do they remember you, or do they just go?
Usually what I will do is we'll follow up the night we met them.
Yeah.
Right away, or even an email right away, and then follow up a couple of days later once you get back, and keep the cadence going. And as long as you have some portion of the conversation that will resonate with them, that'll, you know, spur their memory, then they're like, oh yeah, you're right, yes. So yeah. You know, I look at it as at the very least, we met an awful lot of dealers from all across the country, hell, all around the world. I mean, frankly, and there's a lot of great conversations had, and whether it bears fruit right now, I don't know. But I think we left the impression that, wait, you know, this is a company that we think alike, we like them. Okay. Maybe not today, but at some point in time. So you're just laying the groundwork for what could happen down the road.
Yeah. There was also a bunch of legal compliance companies at the show. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there seemed to be a lot of companies that were, you know, really trying to help dealers, you know, make the right call, but more importantly, protect their ass when they made the wrong call. which I thought was kind of interesting. I hadn't really seen that before. But there seemed the legal side seems to be interested all of a sudden, right?
Well, one of my favorite booths was the one that actually is using that clear technology for trying to prevent identity fraud. And what I found out, which I was very surprised, is there's a huge problem with trade-in fraud. I had not heard that before. So you come up and just like when you're going through the airport, they put your face scan, they scan your face. They're using that same technology and they're using a clear database to verify that the person presenting you the driver's license is actually that person. And then it goes a little bit further and it puts in, you put in the license plate, and the license plate, they've got a tool to check to make sure that license plate is actually registered to that car and that VIN number to make sure that you're not getting somebody trading in a car that's not the exact car, they don't own that car, and making sure you got the right person, because apparently that's a $2 billion a year problem for auto this identity fraud, and they're so sophisticated.
Yeah, I ran into two people. One of them is the Reynolds Document Solution legal team. They had a representative at the Reynolds booth, which was interesting. The other one was the National Association of Dealer Counsel. So these guys actually help dealers avoid lawsuits.
Oh, nice.
Which I thought was interesting, but I'd never really seen that much at scale. The one that I didn't see a lot of, which was kind of interesting, was there wasn't as many visible recruiting companies there than there usually is. I'm not sure why that is, because a lot of the dealers that I spoke to were like, yeah, I need technicians. I need, I need sales staff, my management, they're all aging out. So I need some young people. And I also had the opportunity to meet a bunch of people from the university. And I got to give credit to Fareed for having them at his booth. I met Chase from Northwood.edu. He had them at the DMSA party where they were actually meeting dealers and registering people, but also able to ask at the party dealers questions, which I thought was really interesting. And they also had their director of education there, which was kind of interesting. But we are almost out of time. So any final thoughts as we prepare for 2027 and as we roll into 2026 from NADA? Go ahead.
Well, for me, it was a fun show. I'm glad it's over. Can I get back to work? I'm kind of a routine guy, and it's like, okay, good. That was fun. So now let's just get back to the heavy lifting.
Fantastic. Peter?
It was one of the busiest shows. I got to tell you, you and I were running around doing interviews, talking to people, talked to a lot of great people. The technology is there. A lot of new technology going to come out. But again, I always fall back to fixed ops. I think fixed ops for this year, we know sales are going to be tough. Fixed ops is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for dealers to be successful. So I'm excited because the next couple of months, we're going to be doing some more shows talking about fixed ops. We're going to bring some more big names to the panel to provide dealers a lot more beneficial information to help them succeed. But the show was very interesting and saw some neat stuff, but it's going to be a tough year for a lot of people. But hopefully next year, NADA will kind of hear from some of the dealers and possibly make some positive changes so everyone can actually do better.
Yeah, and maybe you could share, thanks for that. Maybe you can share a few details on, what Cactus Sky and the Auto Hub show can do to make sure people show up at your booth if you're a vendor during NADA. Like, what was the results so far of the marketing you were doing for the show, and the show was doing?
We did extremely well from our vendors, all the vendors that were participating in our daily top booth campaigns. We had sometimes as high as a 80% click-through rate. So we're sending out emails every morning to the 4,000 plus people that we had email addresses for that were at the show. These are actually people we knew that were at the show based upon the list that NADA provides, and we were able to match up email addresses. So a highly targeted list, open rates over 40%. Some of our clients had 200 to 300 clicks from that email to the landing page to show where their booth was. So highly effective. We did a lot of pre-show marketing for some of our clients, and literally out of the 4,000 emails that would go out, there was over sometimes 1,500 people that were clicking specifically back to that company's website. Like Numa was one of those companies, and you walk by the Numa booth was packed.
Yeah.
The Nobu party for dealers packed.
Yeah.
So very successful because we're able to help you target the people showing up at NADA. But leading up to NADA, we're marketing to 80,000 plus automotive contacts. So it's a great way to reach the automotive industry. And it's like you got to do before, during, and after.
100%. I mean, when you look at DSMA's party, which was Skyfall, it was oversold by 150 people. Numa was, Numa's was, they were slammed the entire show. Even on Friday, they were very, very busy. So that's a testament. If you do have questions about the Auto Hub show, our new website is up. We still got to do a few final touches, but we'd love your feedback, and have yourself a great week. If you have questions about the show and we can be of help, we can be happy to answer them. Have yourself a great day, and thanks for attending the show today and for all your thoughts. Bye for now.
Thank you for helping the industry get better today live.